What's up people, it's Wasabi and I'm back with another review. And today we have the Lamzu Tachi, and this mouse is not sponsored, but as always these are my thoughts, personal opinions and experiences with the product. Before we get on with the review, here's a quick look at packaging because that's what you pay for too. So here's what you get: the Lamzu Tachi gaming mouse itself, an 8K polling rate receiver, 2 sets of replacement skates plus an extra set of back feet with the screw cutouts, a set of universal grip tapes and a sticker designed to seal the bottom of your mouse to keep the dust out. You also got a handy Lamzu pouch, which is my personal favorite accessory that I use for other mice as well. Now this mouse has a hot-swappable switch design and they include 3 additional pairs of switches from various brands on top of the ones that are already in the mouse. You also get a screwdriver, replacement Teflon pads that fit under the plunger, spare switch sockets and screws, a USB-C charging cable, a quick start guide, and that's pretty much all that's included inside the box. Now before we go any further, let's manage some expectations here real quick. Since it was first announced, Lamzu has had a couple of launches and most notably the Maya X, and now the Tachi is finally available for purchase, that is if you can find it in stock because it's sold out pretty quickly. Oh, and by the way, this is priced at $170. The look of this mouse is pretty wild, especially in this black colorway, but you also have a white option with the same details, just not as striking as this one. The magnesium finish is similar to what you'd see on the Black Viper Mini Signature Edition. It's not just a flat coat of black paint, but rather a light textured dynamic finish. Now here's my honest opinion, I don't think this mouse looks particularly appealing. Usually gaming mice look impressive online and not too far off in person, but this one falls short on both. The wiggly lines give it a caterpillar-like appearance, which isn't something I am eager to have my hand on, and overall with this aesthetic of the mouse, you got wiggly lines, solid angles and outlines that almost seem like an attempt to mask the cutouts because it would look a little one-dimensional without the extra details. And the result is a look that doesn't quite hit the mark in my opinion because these are prints and not engravings. Typically, if a mouse's aesthetics are lacking but everything else is great, I can overlook it. However, in this case, the design for me is a bit of a stretch. But at the end of the day, it's all about personal preference, so if the design works for you, then that's perfectly fine. The Lamzu Tachi is absolutely fantastic when it comes to the build quality. With its solid magnesium shell and sturdy base design, everything feels exceptionally well put together from the moment you unbox it. Now the mouse buttons have minimal wobble, the scroll wheel is securely fitted, and the side buttons are just as solid as well. There is no flexing or creaking in the shell or on the sides of the mouse, and overall it feels incredibly robust. Even after extended use, disassembling it and putting it back together multiple times, and testing the different switches, it continues to impress with the same strong premium feel as it did on day one. The stated weight on the website is 49 grams, and on my unit with the skates that it comes with, it weighs in at 48 grams. Now before I get into more detail with the shape and how it feels from my experience, to put things into perspective, my hand size is 17.5 by 9. The Tachi is a good universal shape and it is smaller than the Maya X, the GPX, and the Viper V3 Pro, which are 3 universal shaped mice that are very well compared today. For magnesium mice though, the Tachi is probably the safest option out there if you're into this material. And if you compare it to the Lamzu Maya 4K on paper, the Tachi is just 1mm longer and 1mm wider. It doesn't feel too different overall. In fact, it feels just a hair more filling in the hand, and from my experience, just a little more comfortable in my hand than the original Maya 4K from what I can remember. This shape is very much reminiscent of the Lamzu Maya. If you've experienced the first Maya or the successful Maya X, this will feel quite familiar. The grooves of the mouse buttons are extremely subtle, just enough to hint where your fingers should be positioned, but not enough to feel like you are subjected to that one spot. In the front, the corners do not flare out, so you can comfortably extend your ring and pinky fingers along the side. The sides are angled inward down to the base, and this is quite noticeable, but not in an uncomfortable way. In fact, an angle like this gives you a secure hold on the mouse and even makes it easier to lift. In the middle where your thumb rests, the curve is extremely subtle, and it's just enough to comfortably support the lower portion on the sides of your inner palm. The Lamzu Tachi is a mid-hump design with a gentle, generic slope running down the back. It's a great choice for a universal shape that works decently well with various grip styles. Overall, the back feels well contoured in your palm, and in general, the Tachi is an easygoing shape. I believe many gamers, even super casual players, will find it comfortable, easy to control, and perfect for everyday use. The surface on this mouse reminds me exactly of the Viper Mini Signature Edition. In my opinion, it doesn't offer the best grip though, especially when your hands get sweaty. It would have been nice if this mouse had a more grippy coating, but it is what it is. If you end up with it and find the grip less than optimal, just stick on some of the grip tapes included in the box. box. The pre-installed skates are super thin and the glide from them is pretty average. Definitely not as smooth as you expect for a mouse at this price range. But here's a bit of good news. In the box, you'll find a set of skates that's much higher in quality, which are very similar to what you'll see on the Maya X. Now this part is to help people visualize the different grip styles on the Lamzu Tachi with reference to my hand size. With my hand size of 17.5 by 9, using a claw grip feels comfortable. I wouldn't say it's the ultimate shape for this grip style because this is a universal shape design. It's more generic than those mice that are specifically tailored for one grip style. That said, it feels great with a relaxed claw grip. A regular claw grip works fine as well, but an aggressive claw grip, that's something I prefer to use on other mice. The mid-hum design means that placing my fingers further back on the mouse buttons would feel too high for my hand. For the palm grip style, it's totally usable with my hand size. However, if your hands are any larger than mine, you might find that your fingers extend off the mouse. And for the fingertip grip, I find that the height of the back end gets in the way. It limits my freedom of movement under my hand. I can make it work if I position my hand further back on the mouse, but then the front side button becomes out of reach. For larger hands, this grip style will work a lot better for you, especially since this mouse is on the smaller side. The Lamzu Tachi has a hot-swappable switch design. It comes pre-installed with custom Huano transparent blue shell pink dot mechanical switches, which feel really nice in this build. And for those of you who are curious, I have my debounce time set to 0 milliseconds with no issues. In the box, you also get 3 additional pairs of switches to try out, so you can find one that feels best for you. Now a quick tip regarding the skates before you swap in the nicer full bottom skates included in the box. Just make sure you've decided on which one of the 4 switches is your favorite. And this is important because the pre-installed skates have gaps that allow you to access the screws, making it much simpler to test out all the switches without having to rip off the skates. For some people, the way the switches sound and feel can be a make or break factor. And with most gaming mice, you're stuck with whatever switches they come with. So this approach broadens the appeal of a mouse, and including extra sets of switches makes the package feel very complete. It is a super convenient feature that gives you the freedom to customize the experience to your liking. Swapping the switches on the Lamzu Tachi is a very simple process. First, you gotta remove the screws on the bottom using the small screwdriver included in the box. Once that's done, just take off the top of the mouse and you'll have direct access to the hot-swappable switches. So in total, you have 4 different switch types to choose from. Lamzu's custom Huano transparent blue shell pink dot switches that are pre-installed, TTC Falcon Micro G169 switches, Omron mechanical 20mm switches, and KOG M8 switches. Most of these switches have been around for many years, and I'd say the Huano switches that come pre-installed will be the most enjoyable for most people. But this is a great opportunity to test them all out and see which one feels best for you. And if you're buying switches online, just make sure they have 3 pins on the bottom. Now a quick tip, if you're having trouble removing the switches, do not force anything because you might accidentally break the scroll wheel or encoder. So instead, give this a try. Lift out the back portion of the switch first, then use the tip of the screwdriver to press in from the front and gently pull up. That way it pops out super smoothly without putting unnecessary pressure on other components. The side buttons on the Lamzu Tachi are ones I really enjoy for gaming, at least for the most part. The front side buttons feels really good to click. It has very little pre-travel and just a bit of post-travel, which makes it feel responsive and satisfying during gameplay. The rear side button though, it's a bit of a different story. It's super loud and has a thin hollow sound to it. There's also more post-travel, making it feel mushier in comparison. That said, both side buttons have 0 wobble when you brush your thumb against them, which is definitely a plus. The scroll wheel on the Lamzu Tachi feels really pleasant to use. It's quiet with just the right amount of tactile feedback as you scroll through the steps. Though I would say if it were any smoother, I probably wouldn't feel as comfortable using it for gaming. Scroll clicks require a light to moderate amount of force, and there's a nice bit of dampening at the end of the click. I also don't find myself accidentally scrolling when trying to click down, and partly because of how low the scroll wheel sits in the mouse. Now here's a quick sound test to give you a better idea of how this mouse sounds. You know, actually I'll be doing 4 sound tests since I know some of you will be curious to hear what the other switches sound like in this build. Tachi is fitted with a Port 3950 sensor, and that lets you go all the way up to 30,000 dpi. Liftoff distance can be set as low as 0.7 millimeters, and you can also set it to 1 or 2 millimeters if you want to. The sensor has been working perfectly well. There hasn't been any hiccups or negative experience with my time on it. The Tachi is compatible with Lamzu's Aurora Red-based software. It's got all the settings you need and would expect from a high-performance gaming mouse today. Macro settings, motion sync, competitive mode, debounce time adjustment as well, the option to adjust your polling rate of course, and set your liftoff distance. What I like about Lamzu's software is that you can see all the things in one page, so there is no need to navigate through multiple tabs. The battery life is rated at 20 to 80 hours depending on the settings. My guess is 20 hours when you have competitive mode on and the polling rate set to 8000 Hz, and for 80 hours you probably have competitive mode off and polling rate running at 1000 Hz. My advice is that if you want a balance of high performance and battery life, just use 2000 Hz. It's way more than what most people need today. Of course, if you have a high-end setup and monitor to support super high refresh rates, then just go ahead and max out the settings, but make it a habit to plug in the charging cable before you go to bed. Connectivity wise, you can use this mouse both wirelessly or wired. The Tachi includes the Lamzu 8K receiver as standard, so you can use up to 8000 Hz wireless out of the box. The wireless polling rate options that you have range from 1000 Hz to 8000, and for wired mode, the polling rate options range from 125 Hz to 1000. And the cable that it comes with is too stiff for wired gaming if that is how you wish to use this mouse. The Lamzu Tachi is a rather nice daily driver experience for me. I haven't experienced any deal-breaking issues with the mouse, the sensor, or even using high polling rates from the first time I got it up to now. The one thing I wish was better on this mouse is the grip from the surface while gaming. I really like the weight of this mouse. It feels just right for the shape. The magnesium structure is impressively solid, and despite being designed for hot-swappable switches, it still feels more durable than some fixed configuration mice out there. The shape is comfortable and easy to use, and while it's on the smaller side, it's not too small. So if you have medium to large hands but you prefer a compact mouse without sacrificing too much of comfort, this could be a very good option. You know, I really hope and pray that Lamzu will sell the top shell and new parts as accessories. That way, people who already own a Tachi can swap it out for a different color or even different materials, like a plastic shell with a grippy coating or even carbon fiber composite. That would not only change up the weight and feel, but it would also make the experience way more customizable. And since they already have an awesome base structure, it just feels like the perfect opportunity to do something like this, which can give them an edge over the market. Now, final thoughts, and what do I think of its value? Is it an expensive mouse? Yeah. But the feature to swap out the switches adds a lot of value for a universal shape like this. It gives people the freedom to experiment with different switches, figure out what they like, and that knowledge will be very useful when they are looking for a new mouse in the future. Not everyone has the luxury of trying multiple mice, and with the versatile universal shape that this mouse offers, I'd say it's one of the better high-end options for gamers who want a premium material experience without worrying too much about the shape compatibility. Now I get it, opening up a mouse and messing with the PCB might feel a little intimidating at first, but as always, take your time. If something doesn't budge, don't force it, because you might just break something, which I am sure Lamzu does not cover. If you have trouble separating the top shell from the base of the mouse, what I do is push down on the scroll wheel and it comes right off. But just make sure that all the screws that hold the two halves together are removed first. As for the design, that's always a personal preference. I am really not a fan of the styling, but if you're considering this mouse, I'd recommend the white version. It has a more subtle look if you find this black one overwhelming. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful in any way, please leave a like and subscribe to support the channel, and I guess I'll see you in the next one.